why did you start the charity?
It's a long story. So
I want to hear the story.
Okay, so I started doing hair young and just worked my way up. And I went to college first. I graduated with a bachelor's in business. To this day, I'd never picked up my diploma. After college, I went to hair school just to get my license. And I was already doing hair for a long time. And after I got my license, I went to assist at a high-end hair salon. And it was kind of tough because, I know what I'm doing to an extent. And then I had to go all the way back down to the very beginning to rock bottom.
Right.
All I was allowed to do was pull hair out of the color wheels and do shampoos, and that's all I was allowed to do. And I see people, all the stylists cutting hair, and I'm like, all right, well,
I could do this.
Yeah. So, and eventually I got to that point where I was assisting, and I became the best assistant, and they wouldn't let me progress any further. So I was like, I got to go. It got to a point where I kind of peaked, and there was no more room for growth because they weren't letting me become a stylist yet. So I was like, all right, I'm out. And every place I worked at, it was just whenever I felt like I was the best in any particular situation and there was no more room for growth, it was time to go. And I always tell myself I always felt comfortable in second place and not first.
Right.
So being in second place, there's always going to be a little bit of room for growth. There's always going to be someone to be inspired by, to keep pushing yourself. And
get better.
That's
exactly. Interesting.
So that's how I've been able to progress.
Right.
And eventually got into a point where I started working in New York City at one of the top hair salons in New York City, charging at the time, this is 8 years ago, charging $150 for a haircut, men or women. And I got to that point, I was like, I still don't feel successful. I thought this was success. When am I going to find it? And that's when I kind of just took a step back, and I was tired from grinding and pushing myself so hard. And I went to the Philippines to visit family. And I saw to visit family, and not really having this whole grand master plan of this is what I'm going to do, this is my idea, this is what I'm going to do. When you go to the developing countries like the Philippines, you see what real poverty looks like. Never to upgrade the situation of a homeless individual living in America, but in developing countries like the Philippines, you see children living on the street, 4 years old, 5 years old, no parents taking care of one another. And that's what real poverty looks like. These people in these certain areas can't just sit on a street corner and put out a cup and beg for money because everybody's in the same situation.
Right.
So in turn, everybody just takes care of one another because they're a community.
Right.
And over here, you can do that, And so I just rented a chair in a little barbershop, garage door that opens up, 100% humidity, 100 degrees, and I rented a chair for the day and worked with the local barbers, and I invited the kids to come in for haircuts. And from that moment on, I realized I knew I was going to do something good for them, but what happened to me was something I never even could have imagined, So I realized how powerful and special what I do for a living is, and my job as a hairstylist is simply to make people happy, no matter who they are, whether you're a billionaire or you're homeless. My job is to make you happy. My job is to make you feel better than you did before you sat in my chair. And so I was like, shit, I can take this anywhere. So that's when I took it back to New York, and I packed a backpack with all my stuff, cordless anything, and I went for a walk on the streets of New York. And that's when it started in New York, where I just started cutting homeless people's hair on the street.
I mean, you're changing lives,
Lives, yeah.
So how's your life changed since then? Do you feel like you found your purpose?
I totally found my purpose, and I found what success really means, and it wasn't to make money.
What does success really mean?
Success to me is my motto is I'm either expensive or I'm free, but never cheap.
Right.
And that's how I found my success. Yeah.
Amazing. Cheers to you, man. That's awesome. So inspiring.
Thank you.
Shit. I needed to hear this today. So what's next for you then?
What's next? I'm currently building out a new salon right now in Chelsea on 17th and 10th. So I'm really stressed out.
Why are you stressed out?
Actually,
what's the vision behind the salon?
So I have another salon in Summit, New Jersey that I opened up called the Silver Vine Room. And that's
cool.
been open for a year and a half. And going back to my whole thing about being in second place, I was able to come up with that name because silver is like gold, silver, bronze in the Olympics, and silver's in second place. And vines grow uncontrollably, so kind of just uncontrollable growth, no matter who walks in, and for the employees that I have working in there. I looked up the name of silver vine, and it actually happened to be the name of a plant. It's kind of like the plant theme. Me and my partners wanted to stick with that theme, and came up with the name My Darling Ivy. That's going to be the name of the salon. Hold on.
I know, noodle time.
Noodle time.
Noodle time.
So My Darling Ivy. Ivy is one of the most resilient plants out there. also grow through anything, in no matter what
Yeah.
situation.
Resilient.
And darling is just like a word to kind of balance such a strong, powerful word. We came up with like Mother's Ivy and Devil's Ivy and all these different names. And Mother's Ivy ended up sounding like breast milk, so we're like, no, we can't do that. And Devil's Ivy
Yeah.
just wasn't going to work.
Right.
So we came up with My Darling Ivy.
That's awesome. So are you excited for that new chapter?
I'm excited, yeah.
So how do you balance it? You're also a dad.
I'm also a dad.
How do you balance everything?
I don't know, just do it.
Yeah?
You can't really explain it, right? Just make it work.
You have no choice. Just make it work. And how long have you been living in Jersey City?
Like 6 years now.
And what about Ani Ramen? How long have you been coming here?
So let me tell you something about Ani Ramen. So Luck's been a really good friend of mine forever. When he got married young, and I was still taking friends and family out of my parents' garage back then. And he came on his wedding day with his groomsmen to my parents' garage to get their hair done.
No way! I did not know
We were
that.
like
So you guys have been friends for a long time?
Yeah.
How has it been kind of like seeing their growth as like business owners and you're kind of like on that same...
It's amazing because even though we're in completely separate industries, surrounding yourself with people who are better and smarter than you is always going to help you progress yourself. So yeah, being surrounded by people like Luck and Israel and all that kind of stuff, you want to keep pushing yourself, and you need to just interact with those kind of people.
And be around positive people.
Yeah, exactly.
They also have the best ramen in Jersey City.
I can't eat ramen anywhere else. I swear.
I know.
There's
really...
like one other spot in the city that I went to. There's a hole in the wall, and I was like, all right, I can do this.
Right.
But like, I'm always disappointed no matter where I go.
It's I always tell them, like, do you guys put crack in like your fucking ramen?
I think so. I think they might.
Anything else? Any like future plans or goals or?
So I do a lot of like different campaigns with all different brands and stuff. So I'm in the process, or right now I'm in the middle of a campaign with State Farm in collaboration with Friends for their 25th anniversary. That was kind of fun. I went to the Friends pop-up on Press Day in Soho. And yeah, a lot of my recent things like within this past year, working with like Nike and shooting a commercial with Nike. Before that was Under Armour.
That's awesome.
It's been really
so
fun.
do you even cut hair anymore? Like, do you still like?
I do. I'll never stop cutting hair.
Right.
And I don't cut hair as much behind the chair like in the salon anymore,
Right.
just because of all this other stuff going on.
Right.
And like in the hair world, like there's a lot of people that are like, oh, 6 months booked, and they think like that makes them sound like more like desirable. But in fact, like all they're really doing is just making themselves look like bad business people at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, we're all like somewhat entrepreneurs, especially as a hairdresser.
Yeah.
So when you say you're 6 months booked, you're doing something wrong. Like I always say that you shouldn't be booked for more than 2 weeks because otherwise you're not charging enough money. So going back to I'm expensive or free but never cheap, but every time I'm booked too far in advance, I just raise my prices.
Right.